In the shadowed heart of the Korean peninsula, where the lights of the world flicker out long before midnight, a boy named Shin Dong-hyuk came into existence not under the warmth of a mother's embrace, but in the frozen grip of Camp 14. It was 1981. And his mother, swollen with child, had been dragged there under the ancient curse of guilt by association, a decree from the supreme leader that branded entire bloodlines as enemies if even one soul dared whisper dissent. The camp sprawled across jagged mountains like a scar on the earth, home to 20,000 souls stripped of names, reduced to numbers in a machine of endless torment. Shin's first meal was not milk from his mother's breast, but a thin gruel of corn husks scraped from the factory floor where she toiled, her body still aching from the labor that had birthed him amid screams that echoed unanswered. As the years clawed by, Shin learned the camp's cruel alphabet. Survival meant scavenging rats from the dirt, their scrawny hides roasted over stolen embers, or chewing on the bitter weeds that choked the barren fields. Hunger was a constant companion, gnawing deeper than the winter winds that whipped through the electrified fences, where guards perched like vultures, rifles glinting in the perpetual gray. Escape was a myth whispered in the dark, punished not just by death, but by spectacle public executions, where families were forced to watch as the condemned dangled from nooses, their bodies swaying like warnings in the wind. Shin's world was a forge of fear, where children were taught to snitch on their own kin for an extra fistful of slop. At 13, that lesson etched itself into his soul when he overheard his mother and older brother plotting a desperate dash for freedom, loyalty to the state, or survival. The boy chose the latter, trading their secrets for a promise of rice. The betrayal bore fruit in horror. His mother and brother, bound and broken, were hauled before the assembly. She wept no pleas, only silent tears as the rope tightened. His brother, eyes hollow, kicked futilely until silence fell. Shin, chained in a torture cell for 6 months, felt the flames of his own guilt lick at his skin as interrogators twisted his limbs and starved him further, branding him a traitor in a land where trust was the ultimate crime. 2 decades later, in 2005, Shin clawed his way through a forgotten seam in the wire, his body a map of scars tumbling into the unknown of China and then South Korea. There, in the blinding light of the free world, he penned his truth and escaped from Camp 14, a testament to the inferno where human flames burned without mercy. But Shin's tale was no isolated nightmare. It was the pulse of North Korea itself, a nation of 25 million souls perched precariously above their southern kin, its borders sealed tighter than a dictator's fist. At night from space, the peninsula gleamed like a broken necklace, South Korea ablaze with neon dreams. While the North lay cloaked in darkness, its people herded to bed by 7 under curfew's iron hand, lest they glimpse the stars and question their cage. Once, in the 1980s, this land had whispered of promise. Factories hummed with Soviet aid, oil flowed like rivers from Moscow's generosity, and the per capita wealth eclipsed that of India or China. Free homes rose like monuments, education and healthcare unfurled without coin, and the economy swelled at 4.5% each year under the watchful eye of Kim Il-sung, the eternal president whose portrait gazed from every wall. But empires crumble, and when the Soviet Union gasped its last in the early 90s, the pipelines ran dry. Aid vanished like smoke, and famine descended in 1995, a biblical scourge that devoured between 500,000 and 2 million lives. In Pyongyang, the showcase capital, the regime swept the streets clean of the starving, banishing them to the hinterlands where families made the unthinkable calculus. Let the elders fade first, so the young might claw through another dawn. The government, ever the puppeteer, spun tales of abundance while bodies bloated in the fields, their ghosts haunting a land that had feasted on its own. Isolation deepened the wound. Offers from the world, nuclear disarmament for food and fuel were spat upon, and the Kims doubled down on their fortress of fury. Control seeped into every breath. The state decreed where you slept, What job change your hands? Which school might deign to teach you? Clothes were not yours to choose. Only 15 sanctioned hairstyles graced the mirror's short crops for men, bobs for women. No dye to defy the drab, no jeans to whisper of capitalist sin. Kim Jong-un's signature bowl cut. Forbidden to all but the god himself. Fashion police prowled the markets, scissors at the ready, slashing hems and fining the bold. Or hauling them to cells where Western pollution was beaten out like dust. Education dangled free, mandatory to age 16, but bribes greased the wheels without them. Your child rotted in the back rows, dreaming of elite academies reserved for the loyal. For boys, manhood began with the draft, 10 years in olive drab. Rifles slung over shoulders that ached from farm plows and factory belts. Elections came like clockwork, a farce where one party offered one name and 99.9% thundered approval. Their ballots marked under the gaze of minders. Dissent. It branded you traitor, shuttling you to the camps where Shin had suckled despair. Entertainment was a hymn to the Kims. Televisions bolted to walls, blared state channels, radios tuned eternally to Pyongyang's praise. Kim Jong-un, they sang, waded into floods waist-deep to save the faithful, or sank golf holes in one on his first swing. Foreign whispers South Korean dramas smuggled on USBs were venom. A teen caught viewing one in 2022 earned 12 years of labor, while public executions felled the unrepentant. Their heads shaved and bodies burned as crowds averted eyes. The internet, that global web of wonders, was a ghost in the machine. Access demanded permission, granted only to the vetted, and even then, through an intranet barren as the steps government bulletins and propaganda portals, no more. Librarians hovered like hawks, screens freezing every 5 minutes to capture fingerprints. Sessions capped at an hour's mercy. Phones, clunky relics, betrayed with every snapshot. Images beamed to the authorities for scrutiny. No international calls pierced the veil. No app stores bloomed with forbidden fruit. Religion. Eradicated in the name of jucky self-reliance, an atheist creed where the Kims ascended to divinity. Churches crumbled, crosses kindled fires. And whispers of Christ invited the camp's embrace. Thousands rotted there for prayers uttered in secret. In every home, altars gleamed with the leaders' images, dusted daily under threat of the secret police. Soil one portrait with a careless touch, and the gulag yawned. In 2020, a woman who shielded her children from a blaze, letting the sacred picture char, was denied hospital beds as her burns festered unto death. The economy groaned under forced labor's yoke. Miners hacked 16 hours in shafts that swallowed light. Farmers bent double in rice paddies. Factory drones assembling trinkets for export while stomachs nodded on salaries worth 7 to 9 kilos of corn. 69% scraped without electricity, heat, or clean water. Their days a blur of quotas unmet. Yet in the cracks, defiance bloomed Jang markets. Black bazaars born of famine's desperation, where women hawked smuggled silks, bootleg DVDs, and whispers of the world beyond. They commanded 70% of the nation's shadow wealth, trading not just goods but glimpses of freedom, a K-drama's laugh, a Hollywood hero's stride. Seeding doubts in the propaganda's soil, society fractured along songbun lines, an invisible caste etched at birth. Core loyalists lounged in Pyongyang's privilege, wavering suspects toiled in middling misery. Hostile enemies like Shin's kin barred from the capital's glow, their lives a ladder of demotion. Families, those supposed sanctuaries, became spy nests. In blocks of 30 or 40 homes, neighbors ratted kin to the ever-watchful Inmin Ben, eroding bonds until trust was a relic. A stolen potato could doom generations to the camps, where 80 to 120,000 languished in pens of 40 souls per room, air thick with despair. Starvation culled 40%, survivors gnawing rats or fodder, executions a daily dawn chorus hanged for whispers, shot for shadows. Fences hummed with lethal current, guards gunning down the desperate to bury the evidence. The secret police wove the web of terror, their eyes in every alley, every meal shared. Cruelty cemented the throne. Kim Jong-un fed his uncle 2 dogs, a spectacle to chill the bold. Propaganda painted the Kims as Superman Kosong birthing Korea from myth. Jong-il skiing blizzards at 3, Jong-il skiing storms, yet fissures spider-webbed the facade. Jong Madang swelled unchecked, birthing a 2009 currency purge that backlashed into riots the regime barely quelled. USBs slithered across borders, 81% of escapes clutching them. 98% laced with anti-regime fires shared in huddled viewings that forged forbidden fellowship. Bribes corroded the machine, letting jeans slip past patrols, foreign tunes hum in hidden earbuds. Women, the market queens, led this quiet uprising. Their networks knitting unity from isolation's threads. Proving that even in dictatorship's vice, the human spirit smuggles light. And so, in the peninsula's endless twilight, the story lingers not as elegy, but warning. Dictatorships devour themselves from within, feasting on fear until the famished rise. Freedom is no gift from above, but a flame kindled in the masses' grasp, where choice trumps chains and unity shatters the solitary throne. Shin Dong-hyuk, scarred survivor, stands as witness. From Camp 14's ashes, a world whispers live, not under the boot, but beneath the open sky.